6:30.
Present, Haley Hutton, Billy Hutton,
Here.
David Gallup,
Here.
Eric Polesh, and Sarah Willett.
Here,
Are you a double T?
I am.
Thank you.
I'll
I had
answer
it
dinner.
there, and I'm like, what are we doing?
That's fine.
I'll tell Karen.
No worries, thank you.
Okay, moving on to we have an amended agenda, and if anybody needs another minute or two to look at it.
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Sarah, second by Eric to approve tonight's agenda.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of past minutes.
There was one mistake in the minutes.
That's impossible.
This is gonna be twice in a row. I
That would be
think.
2 months, yeah.
Public's wrong?
No. No. You have that Billy Hutton gave a second, but Billy Hutton was on approval of the
I'm
minutes.
so used to doing this, you just know.
Wait, I should have the right answer.
Good at it. I did it from Nashville.
Robita. Well, I'll fix it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes with that correction?
I quick motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by, I think Dave said, it. Oh, Eric said it first. Second by Billy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Acceptance of financial report. Has not changed, but we did do that donation, Boy Scout donation, up to $1,000, so we'll wait. So if there's a motion to approve the financial report,
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
motion by Dave, second by Sarah to approve the financial report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Down to public comments. And we're here to take any and all public comment.
Why don't I just start on one side?
Yeah, well. Or if you're here for a certain certificate of application, then you can speak at that time also. No public comment.
Hi, sir, this is...
Okay.
Yeah, hold on 1 second, we'll get you next. Somebody... Okay, go ahead. Yep, you're fine.
Okay.
I'm the new acting president of the Ripon Historical Society. Our current president is suffering from cancer and has stepped down, and so I also want to introduce Steve Arbaugh. Steve has just been hired as the Ripon Historical Society Administrator. So Steve will going on. We need a little bit of help organizing our day-to-day world. I wanted to invite all of you to come and take a personal. Most people don't realize what we have. It's quite amazing. We have a very, very complete archive.
I want to press about the situation of Merriman House, a historical society on the Griffin College campus. I want to thank the commission for standing up and asking tough questions about the demolition. I also want to thank the commission for their perseverance in keeping Ripon a unique city that preserves and cherishes. I am hopeful that if pressure is kept on the college by this commission, the state, and other concerned parties, some sort of compromise can be reached. I have spoken to some elected leaders from the city, and I'm disappointed to learn there has been no official outreach to the college to discuss the demolition and alternatives. I think this is an error. I would urge the college leaders, the mayor, etc., and collaborate on a solution. Legally, I believe the college can make decisions on their own, but it's really the ethically right thing to do. This is a community and no one entity lives in the public. I've heard unofficial plan for now is to level the historic structure and put in a parking lot. If that is the case, surely there was collaboration for Fond du Lac County to do a traffic study, parking study in and around the college. I would ask that this I feel that there is no study, there is no plan, there is no decisions being made on data, just a decision. Wall of silence from the college. Thank you to the Ripon Historic Preservation Commission. Remain hopeful that in asking for collaboration, a compromise can be reached for the Merriman House problem. And I have my signature and contact corresponding secretary. So, thank you, Commission. I have submitted this to you for the record, and I've also submitted us, and I hope he publishes it next issue. And I will send this copy of this statement to. I hope he responds. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
You can hang out if you want.
I'll hang out.
I'll just take you out here.
Thank you.
Or not.
Tonight.
I didn't see the updated agenda. You got an extra copy?
Yes, we do. Comments? We'll go down to certificate of appropriateness applications. The first one will be window graphics. We should have that in our packet. And I can start out with a comment of weeks ago at our special meeting. So we could, or I could get the name, because we have one name that's somewhat close, they use the same name, or one word that the city has, after talking with Ludwartz, our city attorney, the city has no city preservation committee right to deny a window or a name of somebody's business proper, the right size, and approve it or deny it that way. It becomes after the fact. So, yes?
I think there's a question about colors too. Sign in the window.
There is to a certain point.
Not
yeah.
anymore, but before Adams.
Because it does say the sign or the color then. So with that said, and from Ludwartz telling us what we can or cannot do, we're here tonight to manage for 123 Watson Street, discuss it. Size according to Sue Leahy.
Concerned, everything's legal, everything's
Yes,
good.
as far as I know, everything is of the proper size. And we got the photograph, so. You know,
Right. Well, I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
okay. The window graphics for 123 Watson Street. All in favor?
perhaps for new businesses get, or, parcels get 3 square feet of footage per linear foot. So this was well below the square footage.
Yeah. We always rely on, they fill out the application that is correct sign or size. Okay. And let's just see. Watson Street, frame construction, 4-foot projection from the facade, 7 foot above the sidewalk. And again, I know that's, I believe that's the minimum, is 7 feet, and that's the maximum. Is that the maximum that it? 4, okay. That's, I thought it was 4.
Craig, is there an awning there currently?
No, it was taken down after. So awning height will actually be a little bit higher than 7 feet. The frame will be a little bit higher than 7. It'll be like 7 feet 4, something like that.
Is it gonna be permanent or?
It'll be a
Permanent.
frill underneath it, so it'll drop it down a few inches.
Yeah.
Kind of like the same style you have on
Yes.
that corner.
Yeah, very similar to that, except there'll be a frame
Construction on one.
on the one.
On the one, yeah. Okay.
Is that can?
Yes, umbrella canvas.
Okay.
If I have a growth spurt, I'm gonna hit my head on this.
I say okay.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
The awning at 314 Watson Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Back to 307 Watson Street, which I believe is the Muggs Coffee House.
Correct.
I didn't get who made the,
Made the
Then-
motion, and Dave second.
thank you.
So at the new one, you're putting, there's gonna be 3 doors?
For the stairs,
Right.
for the upstairs egress. And then,
One for each side?
correct. Most of the buildings are.
Right, okay. That's what I...
And then currently it's a small ledge of stone
Yeah,
that's going to be raised back up to be very much more similar to the rest of the buildings of that period. 32-inch sill instead of whatever it is now, a foot or something. And it'll be a panel type look of some sort of design, and then fill that area again. I don't know that Deb's decided yet, but I'm assuming that Larry had smaller. So I would assume the lower one would be what
Lower
she's
one.
going for each side, but that hasn't been. But for the most part, it'll be windows that remain similar height with the door top. Across that.
She can use a bronze,
I don't know about color yet,
like a frame.
most likely. It'll be very much, it'll be more back to what the building could have looked like. It does now.
That's glass up there.
Right now, it's just large panels. So if you look at the door and transom.
When you redo it.
Yep, those are transom windows.
Those are windows.
Yep.
That's gonna look cool.
I'm sure that we will just be replacing the canvas on it. It's getting worn, so.
Motion by Dave, second by Sarah to approve
What are we approving?
the rebuild of 307, I'm sorry, 307
Do we need
Watson
to
Street.
know more detail?
Frame yet, which we don't, by our ordinance, we don't dictate color. I wish we,
Frame of windows?
yes.
I thought we did.
Um,
There's
Well, never mind.
There's only few choices anyway.
Only silver.
It's probably gonna be a darker color again, much like a lot of them
I
were,
know
so
she's
bronze
got
or black, so.
Great taste, so. And it's gonna be months.
It's gonna remain a
rebuild.
coffee shop.
Okay.
Yep,
They're gonna name it after me though.
I have no idea.
But,
Putting more spot.
okay, so who did Dave?
Did the second.
Okay.
This is for 307 Watson Street to rebuild the front facade. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of our that's tough for me. So we'll move on to discussion of the Republican paper last week that there was a possible sale to the Boys and Girls Club, and it would be house as it stands right now. So I thought it would be important that we could discuss it. I know there's a person to talk to us about it. So if there is any of us on the commission that want to say, Mr. Zimmerman.
Good, all right. I've got 3 handouts, 14 of them. But I'd like to make sure that each commissioner gets one of each 3. If you could pass them around, that'd be great. Talking a little bit, and I guess, if anybody's got questions as we're going around, as I'm talking, please answer when it's fresh in everybody's mind. One of the handouts you have is essentially my bio, so you know who I am. I am a Ripon resident since 2003. I live in a historic home, although not designated. The big green thing. I'm a retired Army officer, retired from the Army in 2008 as of. I am the president of the National Republican History Museum, the producer of the other 2 handouts that you have there, of that foundation, and CLLC. So my intent here tonight is not to talk about any questions that somebody might have about them, about what's going on with that, but I'm here tonight to talk about preserving building and its property. So first thing I want to just mention right up front before we get digging down, and despite what there is nobody else in town that knows the Republican House better in its current condition than me. I've been dealing with it 2015. I've had engineers, construction people, you name it, up, down, left, right, everybody looking at that building. condition is. And I will tell you that according to what the newspaper said, it has irreparable damage. That is just simply untrue, right? Simply untrue. If you think of it like the Mapes Hotel, can be repaired, and now look at what we have, okay? So if you keep that as a comparison, I think that's a great way of looking at it. For the restoration is not going to be cheap. Eric will probably tell you with experience with the Mapes. It morphs so you can get to the end state. We're looking at over $1 million to do it, just based on some rough estimates. Back and the condition that we're shooting for and the look that we're shooting for, because of the modifications that have been in certain places, you really cannot return it to what it was before the 19 when the Republican Educational Foundation actually, modified it, put the supper club in it, put their officers in. Or is a look about 1954-ish, about the time the 100th year anniversary of the founding of the Republican Party in Ripon. So that's the initial plan of what we're looking at. But again, right now I have the donor backing to get this done. Are forward with it as soon as we possibly can, because I will tell you that as the guy that's been managing that building for the last 7 years, the darn thing. It needs to change, and it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed now. The last, I think, and you're all aware, is that city ordinance would allow you to designate local historic property, and then all the certificates of appropriateness and various other things that come along with it. I want to do as a member of the LLC. I will tell you that the other member of the LLC, where he thinks now, okay, because of the sale story that you read in the newspaper. Of what we want to do with the building once it's restored, it will become part of the overall museum complex that we have designed. That complex, or that building, will specifically house the local history of started in Ripon and that kind of thing. The other major point I think I need to mention up front is this, whenever I mention the word Republican, everybody automatically says, oh, politics, it's partisan, that kind of thing. There are two, well, there's probably more. One has a capital letter R and one has a lowercase r. This is lowercase r Republican. Okay, this party. Okay, this is lowercase r Republican. It's the ideal and the fundamentals and the principles around the founding of the right? So there's a significant amount of detail as you go through the significance of Ripon's Republican history, that 2-page handout. And I'll go through some of it, but there's when you look at the founding of the party, and it's very narrow and it's very centered on a very specific period. There's a lot more to this than what we're trying to accomplish. Okay? What we're trying to accomplish overall with the overall museum complex is outlined on the other handout that talks about archives overall. Okay, so that's the general setup. I will, and I have not seen about the letter that was going. Has that letter been published?
No, I just presented a letter with the history of the building.
But you said, wasn't it going to go into, you were going to publish it? Okay.
No, there's something just about what the Historical Society is doing this summer.
All right, it's probably something that's similar to what is in the files already at the Republican House, or at the Historical.
No. Historical Society.
Okay, never mind, all right. My apologies. All right, so So a lot of what you, in the 2-page about the significance is included, I pulled from the files of the Historical Society. So that's the source of a Republican House, is that related directly to the founding of the party, it has no association with it at all, period, doesn't, all right. Well, and you know, about the only association that it has is that it sits on Beauvais addition to is the founder of, you know, the recognized founder of the Republican Party. That's about the only direct connection to the founding. The biggest connection, though, has to do with how the building was used in Foundation, and this is where the track goes back to local Ripon history, state of Wisconsin history, and really national history. The Educational Foundation was trying to do in Ripon really had national reach. Purchased the building.
No, 1952.
Well, they created, they started, and their actions to raise money and all the rest started in the late 1940s. Okay.
1949, after this building and this site burned down.
Yeah. But according to their records, okay, because there's still some people around that have records from that were part of the REF. So, its successor is the American Principle, the Foundation for American Principles and Traditions. And John, if I recall correctly. So it was ultimately set up as, you know, a separate club, their offices, house to its current location. And it really, the Little White Schoolhouse, if you understand how that property is set up, really sits right in the middle of a U, or Republican House property around all three sides. Of REF was to further the principles and ideals of the Republican form of government, and I've got this written in here. These are quotes direct materials. Now the other very interesting piece of history, the direct piece of dirt that is the Republican House, is the Republican Education Foundation, and Pat mentioned the burning down of the hotel. That they had planned to build the national, what they called the National Republican Memorial, and they looks like by the diagram a 4-story U-shaped building with the center courtyard being the Little White Schoolhouse. So they're with the U-shape inside being the Little White Schoolhouse, because at that time the college wanted to move the schoolhouse off for it. The idea of that was it was going to be self-supporting by the American public, and that's an important point when you start looking at funding and things like that, and one of the reasons why it failed. I mean, for all intents and purposes, and they use this one line, is that it was a shrine to the Republican Party. Okay, that was another reason why it failed. Okay? So in our concept, as we were looking at a museum and that kind of thing, I think it's necessary. We're not trying to build a shrine to the Republican Party. We're not trying to create something that is, you know, it's all about history. It's not about a party, it's about history. So that was our focus. They ultimately focused on Ripon and really advertised Ripon and dismissed every other founding place. Like, you know, so here push them aside and said, oh, you guys are really second class. And that's silly to me, because Ripon's just got the best documented history about, you know, the whole founding of the party. But this was going on across the entire northern tier of states in the early 1850s. And talking about Kansas-Nebraska Act and slavery and all this kind of thing. To dismiss everybody, you just, I mean, just from a business sense, you just dismiss everybody that's going to come visit you, you dismissed everything. So it's like, why would you do that? Doesn't make any sense. Our point was in that portion that we're looking at doing, we wanted to celebrate anybody and everybody in any location that has a claim. You know, more stories and more stories, but right now I've got probably a dozen cities across the northern tier of states that have make some claim of being. What the REF was doing, they had an idea of where they wanted to go with it, but they zeroed in and we narrowly tried to, build on that, and they failed. So, we not only want to capture that history, and the Republican House, and what happened at the Republican House is a key component of that history, to capture that history in. And it's, co-location with the Little White Schoolhouse is obvious. I mean, is critical. So that's why RRHC LLC purchased, was to connect the two in an endeavor, and also add on to those pieces of property through local purchases to be able to build this national level museum that is on par with a presidential. Right, that's what one of the other detailed spreadsheet about the museum talks about. So the Republican House itself. And I think the history that we have in there right now, and I will tell you, as I was doing presentations for the museum, I've done several public presentations, but the biggest one I think I did down in, but the one used to have the dress shop on the corner. You guys restored it. I can't remember. It was empty at the time. No one. Yeah, Brinkley's. Before anybody was in there, I did a large presentation, and I think the feedback I got from that, overwhelmingly 90% don't tear it down. Because we were looking at the possibility that we might have to tear it down because we wanted a position on that piece of dirt, and we couldn't rearrange it the way we wanted to. So we were looking at that meeting, which I think was in late 15 or 16. We switched from even considering that, and then our full focus shifted over to trying to buy an adjacent property where we could actually build and have free reign. Okay, that was the BMO Harris Bank property. I had mentioned that before in public, so I'm not saying anything that's new. All right, so what I'm asking for, and I will tell you that from my position as a member of the LLC, it needs to be protected. It needs to have a designation placed on it to protect it and save best as we possibly can. But just to tear it down, in my mind, is a needless waste of history of Ripon. So with that, I will pass on questions. Anybody?
From before, we had renderings, we had all that's out.
Right.
Okay, so now you're in a different mode.
Well, they're not out. They're not out. So there's a lot of different ways to approach the project as far as the museum overall is. Developed any detailed renderings inside for the specifically for the Republican House. So renderings of that, but I do have, there are some pictures on the museum paperwork there that show what we want the larger museum to look. That's not the topic today. I can go on for hours about that. So,
Do you have a deadline of any kind? Where you're at, like now?
From our standpoint, we want to start as soon as we can draft the plan and get the approval. There are, there's permits and approvals, and I mean, especially if the building is designated as to longer, but the longer you take with that process, the longer it takes to get it built. Our intent is we want to get into that building as soon as we possibly can and then have the good amount of the outside work done. So during the wintertime, we can work on the inside. construction around here, so.
So your actual timing is
To,
this summer, you're hoping to dig in?
sure, yeah.
Wrong, but I remember this being up and active a while back,
Right.
and then it went away, and now it seems like it's back, but why now? And
Money.
now,
To not only do this building, but I have the money to do the entire museum project.
Wow.
A nice group of donors. So that came out of the woodwork, to be honest with you. It was a,
I think it'd be a mistake to pass up an opportunity based on your speaking with us tonight, and we have a for sure.
can you have it for sure?
No, we have.
Yes. And I talked to the head of the donor group today, and I said, I'm gonna walk into this meeting and somebody's gonna, and, you know, essentially, and he said, yes, absolutely, we're gonna do this.
So when can we expect for the timing and action schedule and?
Purchase right now, so once that dispute is resolved,
And what's the dispute?
myself and Bill McLeod, trustee at the college. He and I have been together lockstep on this project since it's. The idea was that we create the LLC. He would,
Okay. Hear ya.
with his money, I would manage it. Okay, that's the agreement. There's nothing, when you have an LLC, we don't have a written operating agreement. We have a verbal between us. Okay? Once I had the money and ready to go, would transfer the building from the LLC over to my fundraising foundation. Don't. And the reason why he shifted in that direction is because he does not like the politics of one of my donors. Period. And I have it in writing. So anybody that says that's not true, it's true. So that's where we're at right now. So we're lobbying legal documents back and forth. I sent another one this morning. I haven't heard back from them, so I don't know where we're at. But right now, the building is still in possession of RRHC LLC. And if I have anything to say about it, it will remain that way. We can finally resolve it. So, and I want to see it saved, because that's what we started out. That was the intent. Move forward and save that building. So, hopefully that answers the question.
Okay.
So,
By getting a historical designation, and you can't tear it down.
right. Well, I mean, you might ultimately, but you can't really do anything regarding certificate of appropriateness or anything until you start the ball rolling to designate it as historical property.
Still go down. We've seen it happen.
What's that?
Many times.
It can still go down.
It could.
Even with it. I
Right.
fought for several of them.
One of the reasons why I asked for a audience sooner than later. So, but there, in my mind, I can't tear it down. And, the other piece, and just to fill in kind of the other purchase things, I am actually been for a long time. And I will tell you that, our foundation, my foundation and my donor property in Ripon that is suitable to their standard, not something I just say, here's a piece of dirt, you go for it. Their requirements, and we would purchase that for them, and we would not, they would not be out any more money than what it would the Republican House. We will do that. And that we think there's a great, I use the term synergy. When you look at the two projects, education, inspiration, trying to motivate kids to understand history, all that kind of stuff, they're problems, because I had been helping a little bit looking for pieces of property that might be open. So I get it. If you're looking for an open lot, there's not a lot of them that are we can help with that. So, But anyway, that's kind of the backstory. There's a lot more to it as far as point I wanted to mention that I forgot was when we first looked at state historical director at the time, there's a new guy in there now, and the guy, he takes care of all the buildings and historical buildings for the state of Wisconsin. Okay, the one at that time. He has since retired 2 years ago. The left in 18. New people, new assessments, but to maintain a landmark status, you have to, you could be on the registry first in order to get landmark status, but in order to be a landmark, you have to meet much more stringent requirements. Are the setting and the feeling in which your building exists. So when you're looking at the way the initial team of individuals explained the Republican House, you tear it down, you build something new, you change the setting and the feeling of the ground. Said that is no longer an issue. The only way that landmark status is going to be removed is if you mark down. Okay, that's good news. I mean, that's when it comes to the Republican House. If something does happen to it and it goes down, it's not going to jeopardize the landmark status. The other thing we asked about was moving it. Because we had at one building around on there, we thought it might be a good idea to put it inside the museum and just build around it so you don't have to deal with the maintenance. They told us, don't even think about it, because it ain't gonna happen, because you're really changing the setting and the feel. Right? Now, and they said, don't do that. They have now since come back and said, you can move it to another part of town because it's already moved around. It just has to go into a place that is a approved setting and things like that. So in theory, that whole lot could be, it would take a little bit, but in theory, it could be done. So those requirements, and those were conversations I had with, a couple weeks ago. But we've since confirmed that my information was old. So that's a great to have current info when you're making decisions, right? So, but after that, I will tell you that we should restore it and make it something where people are going to come to Ripon, and that's what we want to do. Okay, sorry. Right.
Thank you.
Can I respond? Can I respond to that? Is that okay?
I think so. Yeah, okay.
We
don't either.
My name is Jason Presto. I'm the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, and respond to Dan's comments because I think it's critical that you understand. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I think it's important that you understand things. That property was pursued, of which Dan was a contending buyer of your own property or of your own ownership. We're under contract on a private sale, and we did our due diligence around the history of the building, both at the national level, the state level, and at the local level. The building was not listed in any way, shape, or form as a historical landmark, and we've gotten their blessings to proceed with the Boys and Girls Club. So I implore that wants to hear about this preservation. You are the target audience for this. You want to restore that building. I get it. You're setting to interfere with a private business transaction in the middle of that transaction and pursue a transaction when there was time leading up to this point to do that, had this been a priority. Money comes at odd times, and it sounds like Dan has his now. Dan also spoke to not having ties to certain political affiliations. And ask you to look deeper into that as well. I think that it's being painted as much more of an easier and more rock-solid, done deal project than I think it is. The facts, but I'd ask you to ask those questions if you're considering doing anything in regards to setting a precedent for I understand you're being appealed to all of the things that make you Riponites, you know, the birthplace of the Republican Party. I mean,
Well, we're all still is
Sure.
you had this.
So
And-
I appreciate that, Kathy, but I think that's what you're being appealed to, that land around the Little White Schoolhouse, and it all makes a lot of sense from a synergy standpoint, right? And we're talking in terms of tens of millions, and that's really exciting. But just do Ripon a favor and ask the follow-up questions, dig in, if you're considering putting a halt to this project. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I add a couple things? I'm Mary Like, I'm the Girls Club Board. I've also been on the steering committee for the Boys and Girls Club project for 5 years. To partner with the school district. We tried to rent spaces in churches. We have been looking to bring this club to town. We identified this site. We have donors that like this site, so that's why we can move ahead with this project. A significant start to this project already. The site will be very helpful for in an area that they can walk to. We were looking at sites on the outskirts of town, and people were saying, how are kids going to get there? This is an idea for our community to walk to that site. It's between school, just the schools in town. The buses can drop them off because they're going that route, and it'll be a safe place for them to be after school or during the summertime. And I'm excited to bring these services to Ripon. Mentioning other sites and trying to find other locations by purchasing properties and trying to buying up houses and things. But I as we said to him, we've been waiting a long time, and that process happened to purchase properties, and we are ready to go. And so that's why I'm here too. This is a project. And we want to have that facility on that site.
Mary, is it true that the Boys and Girls Club also will spread onto that property as well?
We're looking at what we can do with that block
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Yes, but yes,
Thank you.
that's our hope.
As to the history of the building has had a very sad history, of which I gave you a copy of, so everybody has. It was built in 1857, but it has sat empty on and off its entire life. It's been sold twice at sheriff's auction. Anybody knew George Miller, who wrote the books about Ripon? George was very unconcerned with that building. He did not think it had a big part. No one of any note lived in that building, and it sat empty on and off for so many years. So you have that entire individual buildings in Ripon and 4 districts that are on the state and national registry of historic places. Ordinance to protect those buildings, even though they are recognized in a state and national level. The city, even though they are recognized on a state and national level. This building is not on the state or a historic survey done of the property by a qualified historian, which would have to be hired from the outside of recommended survey. When the survey is complete, it would go to the state. The state would review the survey. If they feel that that building qualifies, paperwork is written up, so then you pay an additional fee to the professional historian. Then the paperwork is written up, the historian takes it and goes to the national level to be approved by the National Trust through the National Park Service. This is a 2-year process. State or national designation within 6 months or a year. It's a long process. It takes probably about 5,000 registry paperwork and the survey. So if somebody wanted to state this building was historic, the paperwork should have been over the life of Ripon. Just like I say, we have 7 buildings and 4 districts on the register. And left. It's had a very, very sad history. So just speaking from the historic building gone, but at this point, there's nothing about this building's history that's had for it have never came to fruition. We do have a complete history of the building, pictures, archives, oral. Historical Society and the Boys and Girls Club has stated that they will allow us in to take the pictures we want, take some boards out of the cupola to be removed from that building and come to the State Historical Society. Just to let you know, we've done it at the Cookie Factory, we did it at Boca Grande's office, 39 Historic High School that was ripped down. We've taken so many places we've gone into and taken that history out, and it's now wondering where the Cookie Factory outlet sign is, we have it. So just so you know, you have a history would qualify for the State and National Registry. I am not a professional historian, but then we would have to do not have it at this point. So I'm thinking 2 years to get on the registry and probably 5 years before we have ordinances to protect them.
On the commission, it's just a public question. So for Mary and Jason, in fairness to you, because the question was asked over here, are you fully?
Yes.
So to clarify something that Pat had said, just to make sure what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for anybody to start any national or state designations. On the line, that might be something, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about local ordinance that allows a historic designation to the council, and the council can attach a historic designation to a building. And I was in here 5 years ago, and that's what via the building. I don't necessarily disagree with some of the stuff that Pat said, but there's a lot more to the history that occurred there. From at least from a local standpoint, but the point that locally we had some of the things happen, things here that I didn't go into that are very significant, I think that make it a historical property. The couple of, it's not closed yet. Right. So one member of the LLC cannot move and exclude the other member of the LLC. What we're working out right now. To mention, you know, my political proclivity. So I think we should probably just set that aside. But I will tell you that I'm, as I mentioned, and my bio clearly states, I'm in this country that existed from 2008 to 1983. And I can tell you, I know what middle looked like. That's how this project is set up. And it's about history. And it's not about interpreting what piece of particular pieces of history. You don't like Donald Trump, that's fine. He's a piece of history and he's going to be there. You don't like Barack Obama, that's fine. He's a piece of history on that political spectrum. But that's me. So,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have nothing that we have no powers to say it can't be raised or, you know, this. Discuss what we did for the Merriman House, and we could draft another letter to the editor on of not letting it be tore down. I think that's about the only thing we could do right now, because there is no designation. And one point to Pat, we do have our Watson Street historically designated. So that does fall under the ordinance of
Downtown, yeah.
the city ordinance only. So I guess I would just open it up for us for discussion on if we want to discuss having a letter to the editor. If we don't want to touch it, you know, it's up to us. It's not like an action item. We don't have to have a motion. We don't have to do anything. If we want to just go on to the next line item, that's fine.
Question, is it in?
No. No.
It's in the TIF district though.
It's in what?
That TID that was downtown created for Boca, it's in
Okay.
that.
It is in the TID, but it's not in our
Right.
historic,
Designated.
where you need
Yeah.
approval to make changes.
Correct.
So we have no authority over to do anything.
No. And that's exactly the way the Merriman House was. You know, they are and send it to the paper.
Well, I suggest we write a letter doing the same, be fair.
I don't have the same feelings for that as I did the Merriman House. Just saying.
Historical building is it's doomed. It is historic. You know how I feel.
Okay.
They can all be saved.
Okay. Is that a motion?
I would make, at least submit a letter.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, motion by Billy, second by Press, in regards to the Republican House and saving it from demolition. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Dave and Kathy Lee opposed. 1, 2. I would like to have a roll call, please.
So what's that?
You just go
Names again?
with the names again, and they'll be either,
R1, no.
okay,
Not here. Billy,
Yes.
Dave, Eric,
Yes.
John,
yes.
Terry, Sarah.
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes. Motion carries. We'll just work, I'll work with,
I think so.
okay,
I think it should be Billy.
Billy. I will work with Billy to draft a letter. And we'll submit it, we'll bring it for approval, so everybody can see it before it's submitted. Okay, we'll have that done by next month. Okay, on to Peterson's letter to the editor. And that was Andrew Peterson.
Yep, that was Andrew.
That was Andrew up there. More or less thinking that he was in public comment, so I think we can just go and just skip the, or unless he has a comment again.
Do you have anything else to add, Andrew?
No, I don't. I just want to Commissioner for being very diligent, persevering in these times when people want take a hard look at possibilities and using their imagination. So thank you.
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Next steps in saving Marion.
There's a lot of actions kind of in the background. I've also suggested to your secretary and to your president/chairman a note that you sent to the paper to the two to the chair of the Ripon College Board of Trustees chair, because I'm not sure if they realize what's going on. So I mentioned that to them and those email addresses and phone numbers.
Yeah, we're
So there's
in
a
for
lot of
that.
discussions going on in the background about this not that happened. There's a bunch of money being raised to try to not say entice the college, but entice the college to say, look, this money is here. Why don't we do this? As you may know, there has not been a public statement by the college that I know of to the Historic Commission or to the city, the alumni of the college about any reaction to the Ripon Historic letter, to my letter. So it is just kind of quiet. And I think that the hope is we're just going to ride this out. There's probably 100, 200 people doing social media and a email/calling up there. And I hate to tell you this, but I think they're probably just trying to weather the storm and try to pull their way through.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if I can just add just a couple things. So in mid-March for the demolition of the Merriman House and the Thorn Street property. With that permit, talking about the historic designation of the property and looking into that prior to any demolition activities. I mentioned it to pull the permit. In conversations directly with the college president and myself and other administration at the college, April, there was no commitment one way or the other whether the house, Merriman House, or the other property was. I followed up with a letter to the college in late April stating, look into the historic designation of the Merriman House because it is listed on the Ripon College National and State Historic Registry as a therefore there may be some requirements for your plans of raising the property. That no action after that. Then last Monday, activities of demolition started. From the college sent out to fraternity members stating that the property was to be raised this. So that was kind of the official notification to the public that it is actually going down. Up until that, in the paper and to me in the city, the communication was we don't have firm plans. I then called the state after trying to reach working from home. It's hard to get a hold of these people, but I talked to Drew Barnhart, who is the reviewer for the state, and mentioned this to her that the demolition activities had started, provided her all the documentation. Only a 30-day hold on the property. No demolition activities can take place because there needs to be historic review, archiving done, and the college has to basically give the state a shot to get in there to document it before it goes down. The city State Historic Office, we revoked or suspended their raise permit for that 30-day period on the Merriman House because been given numerous warnings and been given official correspondence from the city to check this out to make sure that this is done. So that's where it sits right now, is just in a holding pattern of a building that has no windows in it, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the plan was to start officially tearing down the building today. That was, so that now has been backed off to mid to late June. So we are in the whole situation.
Adam, do you know
If I may add, sir, that we did initially go to the site when the workers were present and talk to the managers of that firm that was there, and they were planning on putting it down on the 1st and the 2nd. So if this stay had not happened, it would be down by. Now, I'm telling you that unofficially, that was the managers on the site. That's what they were planning on doing. You know, I can't verify that, but that they believed that and they were planning on orders.
I was just curious if you were aware of a study that might have happened about the traffic that's going to happen because of the parking lot in that neighborhood?
There's, no, I think Andrew had mentioned something about some study. There's been nothing, no official correspondence document, nothing, no communications about any future use of that property to the city. There's been no, it's not like the Republican House where there's possibly plans to do things with the property. Right now, there's nothing. There's been no communication, studies or anything provided to the city stating this is, traffic or this is a problem we're trying to address. It was merely building.
So we knocked on that.
I apologize. I mean, I think it's me being a little bit of a smarty pants saying produce. I think the people in the room probably realize there is no study, right? That this is kind of a shoot off the hip type of thing. I think there's some businessmen in the room. When you make a decision, usually you look at all the data, talk to stakeholders. I think there's people that are from bigger cities in the room. Lots of times there's studies done, analysts, I would assume, in the county that would undergo this study or count cars or put out a worker on the street to do something that categorizes if there is a need for a parking lot. But I don't think, I think the city manager is saying, to his knowledge, it has not been done. And I do think that is an unfortunate instance for methodical planning. Otherwise, it puts the historic commission in a bind when people just start to do these things willy-nilly.
We knocked on a few doors in that area, primarily across from the Merriman building. And there being any sort of a college presence, not just a parking lot, but a college presence. So aware of I think they're all aware now of the tear down, but nothing has been spoken, nothing has been approved by them, nothing, they were not asked about any of it. So I don't.
I think that's important, and I think everybody's a stakeholder in the city, and there should be collaboration. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
Now, are the windows out?
Yeah. They're taken out and set inside.
Are they in case, or is there?
I believe there was asbestos abatement that was done. I believe
That's correct.
That's the reason for the windows being up. But now, it rained last week, it was
And
raining.
it's just raining in the building?
Raining, yep, just drive by it.
But it's another building and set as the building I bought from the city. For so long, it was almost for that reason. It's gone, tear it down.
It's too far gone, yeah. Well, I think because Adam or the city or us, we don't get any information from the college.
No.
I believe we've done that we can do. Unfortunately, our letter, I believe, helped tremendously. It raised a lot of awareness. We have no local designate we never will on that building. So I think we've come to the end of the road on that, and just hopefully, all this awareness may make the college think can save it. I mean, I'm hoping at the last minute they'll change their mind and put it to a different.
A little bit surprised by the college not having any question or taking any question. They're a big part of our city, and
Yeah, but they got out of this, I don't know. They don't have anything to do with us.
I'm disappointed by them because they
Yeah.
promised that they would be good stewards of their buildings.
Yes,
exactly.
they did.
When they said our historic district to be locally designated, we will take care of our buildings, and now we're seeing the fruits of that.
Thank
Yeah,
you to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they said they'd even come to us every spring with their plans, their buildings, and it has never happened.
And that started over a patio or some sort of a stairway where they said, we'll come to you with all of this, don't worry. It was quite a bit bigger than that.
It may not work for this particular building, but perhaps Ripon needs a vacant building ordinance. Other communities in the state that have created something like this. So, because what's happening is that this is demolition by, and it could happen to any building, especially if you get an absentee landlord. We've seen it in communities like Ripon and Berlin, so it can happen here. We should have talked.
Would the city have to follow it too?
Yes, they would. One building in particular. I do believe we've done our due diligence, and hopefully
And
it
I
will work.
thank you for that. I think you have about how you run your meeting, you take your job seriously. So I thank you for that. I would just call on any of you in the to talk to your local state representative if you think it's applicable, or the mayor, or any more light or pressure that can be brought on. I really think they should reconsider back to the city and try to collaborate on some other solution. Of course, that's just my opinion, but I hold out hope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can go to the Facebook page, Haas Brewery Stable, American House. I have no updated information on it. I just keep that as a running agenda item in case we get a hit on one of the buildings. Talk about it. Eagle Scout project donation.
I'm here tonight just representing Ethan and his family. Quickly, the update. I advised your generous offer, and they're very excited. Ethan is out campaigning right now. He's been in touch with Tom and Debbie Rogers about the Mapes House, which is going to obviously have a sign, and presenting to them. He's also applying for a grant from Webster's, and he has a couple of private donations he's soliciting, and he presents to the Rotary June 7th. His design boards are finalized. I didn't bring them this evening because, in all honesty, he's only 95% there. He received some corrections from the Historical Society. In 48 hours, he couldn't turn those around and get them to us. So as soon as those corrections have been made, we'll bring you the final signs we can pass around the table, and I'll talk about that. And tomorrow we meet with Skip to set the schedule for the videography, for the additional information on each building, and to establish the timeline for the QR codes that'll be embedded in the Historical Society's website. So there's still a lot of plates spinning, and Ethan is making progress.
Okay. Would you like that on next month's agenda again?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll add one thing. In talking with Steve, there might be some knowledge there that you can draw on from him based on him taking care of that sort of thing in the past and what materials hold up to weather well and which ones don't, just for longevity reasons.
Okay, sure. And Steve and I work on the Historical Society together, so I'll definitely talk to you about that.
Good.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
using the source that you used.
But,
Okay.
yeah, the prior source is the resource that they're going to. It is an upgraded material. We should share that with you.
Good,
Yeah.
because like I said, aluminum ones,
Yeah.
they dissolved,
Mm-hmm.
they disappeared, except for 2 of them,
Yeah,
go
Wow.
figure.
2 out of all,
Yeah,
You brought the,
2 batches.
yeah, but I know that the Condon's company for the
Yeah.
railroads, or the station,
Right.
is still there.
Yeah, and the one right out
for
front
the
here.
Carnegie Library
Yeah.
is still there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they were all pretty well, the sun depletes those.
Hmm.
So that's why we went with that design we have in the front, because the State Historical Society went with those also. For the
Okay.
parks and whatever.
Ethan spoke to Robin, who was
Yeah, that's
my
Robin, is the one
contact.
with
Yeah.
Pinterest.
I don't remember her last name.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, she was the
No, I
one
dealt with
that
Robin.
guided him. And I,
Yeah, that's the way to go.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. 16 Union Street, local designation. I have no new information on that. It's at the Register of Deeds. And that's, as soon as we find out for sure, I'll bring that back. Next meeting date?
July
I believe
6th.
6th, yes.
Mhm.
Anything anybody wants to put on the agenda that you can think of?
We'll have to see
We'll have to-
what pops up.
I had one thought about bringing up local designation of the 2 residential neighborhoods again. If we have any discussion on that.
I'd love to have a discussion.
Okay. I can put it, I'll put it on the agenda for next month.
Do we start at the bottom?
Pardon?
Do we start at the bottom to start different areas to designate?
We have to educate first.
Right. Yeah, well, we have the 2, Tiger Street and Southwest.
Right.
And Kathy Lee is exactly right. We need to educate first. And we as a commission would have to decide.
Local newspaper
That
again?
that would be a start, again, yes. Mhm. And we can discuss that. Those are all good ideas.
The line for Republican House, I'm assuming will stay on there, so we can see where they're at that point, and because we're doing the letter, we'll revisit that as well.
Yep, definitely.
Same with Merriman.
Yes, we'll have a Merriman House update.
The suggestion for the Boys and Girls Club is.
Okay.
talk to people who-
Next is adjournment.
There's a
I move
deficit
to
on that.
adjourn.
Kathy Lee makes the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Eric and Dave tied. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.